Okay, welcome back. In the asbestos category, there's some stuff that you've got to know before you go buying a home. Asbestos is a fiber. When it gets disturbed, maybe you've got asbestos. You've probably seen the what's called popcorn ceiling. Sometimes it's called the cottage cheese ceiling. It was commonly installed on homes built back in the late 70s. Or in the case of my dad, he built that home in 1959, and then 1978 came, and he says, "Hey, there's this cool new ceiling texture. I'm going to pour a whole bunch of asbestos into the mix and blow it all over the place." That happened. That was a thing. So the fix for asbestos. Let's say you've got that stuff. It can be on the ceiling, it can be asbestos tape, it can be in some other locations. But the EPA recommendation for asbestos is that plan A is do nothing. Leave it alone, don't disturb it. If you don't disturb it, it won't be releasing fibers into the air, and then you won't be breathing them. So that's plan A. Plan B is cover them so that they won't be disturbed. Let's say that you've got maybe an asbestos tape that's out there. Maybe it's on your ducts. According to EPA, the thing to do in that case is basically to cover it up with a foil tape, and you can get that at places like Home Depot. Plan C, let's say you've got the popcorn ceiling texture on your ceiling, and maybe little Johnny is sweeping it, or he's jumping and touching the ceiling, that sort of thing. If that's the case, you can't reliably expect Johnny to stop jumping and testing his vertical. So now you pretty much have to, you could try painting it, and that kind of sort of seals it. But then when you do try to get rid of it eventually, that makes things so much more difficult, because in order to get asbestos down, you got to get it wet, and then you can scrape it down. If it's painted, you can't get it wet, and then it just becomes difficult. So, like I'd mentioned, asbestos is a lung thing. It's a small fiber, it gets into your lungs, and then it causes lung cancer, mesothelioma. And you probably heard those ads by the lawyers about mesothelioma. Very commonly used still in certain applications. The military still uses it. It's a really good heat insulator. So maybe if you've got a Navy ship and you've got different compartments, maybe they have compartment A through F in the bottom of the ship, and what they want to do is if there's a fire in compartment A, they want it to stay in compartment A. So they're going to protect the wall between A, B, and C. All those walls are going to be covered with asbestos to prevent fire moving through. So it is still used. It was used for brakes. I understand that they stopped doing that for brakes in the last number of years. That's what I've been told. Anyway, gets into your lungs. Now, what to do about it? We mentioned that. You want to cover it up, etc. What not to do? I did an inspection where a guy wanted to tear a house down, and it had the popcorn ceiling, and he goes to get his permit to tear the house down. They said, you got to sample for asbestos. So he sampled, and sure enough, that popcorn ceiling texture was asbestos, ACM, asbestos-containing material. And so he's pissed off about that, and he goes and gets the garden hose, and he sprays it all. Now it's wet. Now it's like sheetrock mud. And he scrapes it off the ceiling, and now it's on the walls and on the floor. Well, he did get it off the ceiling, but he didn't make anybody at the county health department happy. And now he's got a massive mess, because now I walk in as the inspector, and I can see that every time I take a step on anywhere on the carpet, I'm crushing asbestos fibers and releasing those into the air. I know that's not awesome. So this guy didn't get his teardown permit until he did a whole lot more work getting all of the asbestos out of the house, properly disposed of. Be aware that if you're a homeowner, at least in Utah, you can get that stuff. Basically what you do is you create a giant garbage bag out of the room. You use plastic tarp along all the walls and along all the floor. And you don't use a hose, you use a weed sprayer to get it wet. And while it's wet, you can scrape it and it comes down, it lands on your giant garbage bag. And then as the homeowner, you can actually just roll that up and throw it away in the garbage can. If you're a business, then that's hazardous waste and it needs to be treated as such. Homeowners have different rules. If you go buying a home that was built before 1978, it could have asbestos. So you're going to want to have your inspector look for that. Like I say, it could be the popcorn ceiling texture. Based on my experience, at this point in time, if you've got a popcorn ceiling texture somewhere in the house, high 90s%, it's going to contain asbestos. It's going to be an ACM, asbestos containing material. Similarly, you're going to want to look on the ducts. You can also have, that's kind of an eggshell white sort of a tape. And if, there's some other places where asbestos can be, but those are lower priority because they're kind of sealed. So that's the kind of stuff you got to know before you go buying a home in the asbestos category. I'm helping you to avoid buying an asbestos-laden home. I'm the home medic.